The roadmap to recovery after moral failure. The promise and the collapse. In the most stressful moments, our promises are often tested. Peter, the one called the Rock, declared absolute loyalty to Jesus. But just hours later, facing ultimate fear, he collapsed. The story of Peter's denial is more than a historical tragedy. It's a profound lesson in personal reputation crisis management and the path to recovery after a moral failure. It teaches us that recovery doesn't come from concealment, but from the power of vulnerability. The personal reputation crisis. 3 denials. Peter was questioned 3 times. With each instance, the pressure increased. First time, he denied it. Second time, he swore he did not know the man. Third time, he began to curse, swearing that he did not know Jesus. Crisis analysis. This was a severe reputation crisis. Peter didn't just fail. He publicly betrayed the values and declarations he had built. In a modern context, this is akin to a CEO publicly committing to corporate ethics only to be exposed for a serious violation. Immediately, the rooster crowed, and Peter remembered the warning. The moment Jesus looked at Peter was not one of condemnation, but a confirmation full of compassion. Peter went out and wept bitterly. Repentance and restoration. The key lesson is the difference between true repentance and superficial regret. Peter did not try to justify himself, blame circumstances, or evade responsibility. Peter's action, he wept bitterly, an act of vulnerability and acceptance of the painful truth. This genuine repentance is the first and most critical step in any reputation crisis. The contrast, Judas's lesson. Judas regretted his actions but did not seek restoration. He took his own life. In crisis management, reputation recovery doesn't come from hiring PR experts to cover up. It comes from publicly admitting the mistake, feeling the pain, and demonstrating genuine change. This vulnerability is the very strength that rebuilds trust from the core. Application in modern ethics and business. When you face the cock's crow in your life, the moment you realize you've done something wrong, apply Peter's model for recovery: swift and honest admission. Don't delay facing the truth, the cock's crow. Publicly accept responsibility, repentance, instead of trying to control the narrative. Demonstrate vulnerability. In an organization, a leader who apologizes and shows sincere disappointment over their behavior will regain trust much faster than one who issues a dry, official statement. Focus on restoration, not fear. Peter returned to his mission after being restored. You need to turn failure into motivation to serve and act with greater humility than before. Failure does not define you. How you respond to it does. Why judging others is the greatest spiritual trap. The problem of public image. In the modern world, appearing moral is sometimes more important than actually living morally. We use social media and public forums to showcase our spiritual superiority, a phenomenon we call virtue signaling. Today's story, the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector, is an ancient lesson warning against the danger of this habit. It exposes why moral arrogance is more dangerous than even public mistakes. 2 approaches. Moral complacency. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, but they had 2 completely different approaches to self-improvement and to God. The Pharisee, moral arrogance. He stood upright, prayed loudly, thanking God that he was not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. He listed his moral achievements: fasting twice a week, giving 1/10 of all his income. The Pharisee's prayer was not a conversation with God, but a public performance and a negative comparison with others. He used his achievements to self-justify and self-sanctify, turning self-respect into moral complacency. In contrast, the tax collector, a socially despised person, stood far off, not even daring to look up to heaven, beat his breast, and said, "God, have mercy on me, a sinner." Authentic self-respect. Jesus concluded, "The tax collector went home justified, accepted, but the Pharisee did not." The reason is simple. The tax collector came seeking help, while the Pharisee came to submit a report of his perfection. Psychological analysis. Arrogance. The Pharisee's arrogance sealed off his potential for growth. He couldn't learn because he had already decided he had nothing to learn. Authentic humility. The tax collector's humility was not low self-esteem, but authentic self-respect, the ability to honestly recognize one's flaws without blame or self-deception. The lesson is, everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. Accepting one's own shortcomings is the only path to growth and deep connection. Application in modern ethics and work. How do we avoid the Pharisee's trap in the age of virtue signaling? In leadership, the Pharisee leader is one who publicly boasts about company success and ethics, but secretly ignores internal issues or blames employees. The tax collector leader is one who admits failure, learns from it, and focuses on improvement rather than posturing. On social media, virtue signaling is the act of expressing moral opinions purely to gain social approval, likes, shares, and feel superior to others. Authentic moral action is doing good or speaking up for justice without needing public validation, or being willing to self-examine before judging others. Psychological check. Examine whether the goal of your words and actions is to elevate yourself, complacency, or to create change, humble service. The power of culture and subtle influence. Invisible influence. We're often obsessed with massive changes, groundbreaking decisions, and loud revolutions. But the most profound and lasting transformations happen quietly and invisibly. Today's story, the parable of the leaven, describes how a small amount of yeast can transform an entire huge mass of dough. This is a marvelous lesson on the power of organizational culture and how a tiny habit, a single individual, or an initial idea can create a cascading influence across the entire system. The subtle transformation. The parable tells of a woman who took a little leaven, yeast, and mixed it into a large quantity of flour. Leaven. This is the small catalyst, insignificant in volume. The act of mixing the leaven is blended in, meaning it doesn't stay on the surface but penetrates every corner of the dough mass. Mechanism analysis. Leaven doesn't make the dough rise immediately. It works slowly and exponentially through a chemical process. The change doesn't happen externally but from within the core of the dough. It takes time, but the result is that the entire mass is lifted and fundamentally changed, becoming light, airy, and ready for baking. The lesson here is, true influence doesn't require noise or fanfare. It requires penetration and consistency, culture and contagious impact. In organizations and in life, the leaven is organizational culture. Culture is leaven. Culture isn't just slogans hung on the wall. It's how people act when no one is watching. A small habit of honesty, a personal commitment to excellence, or a minor negative attitude from one individual, bad leaven, can spread and transform the entire organization. Contagious effect. Just one new hire with the spirit of innovation, good leaven, can spread optimism and break the inertia of an entire team. Conversely, one individual with a habit of blaming others, bad leaven, can erode everyone's sense of responsibility. This lesson encourages us to be patient with small efforts. Transformation doesn't require one big push. It requires a powerful catalyst applied consistently. Application in personal and organizational development. How can you utilize the power of the leaven in your own life? In personal growth, good leaven, focus on tiny daily habits. Read 10 pages a day, meditate for 5 minutes every morning, or save 1% of your income. These are the small leaven particles that will exponentially inflate your knowledge, calm, and wealth over time. In leadership, controlling bad leaven, a wise leader doesn't just care about superficial performance, whether the cake has risen. They must constantly check the quality of the leaven, culture. A toxic behavior from a single individual must be addressed quickly, as it will rapidly spoil the spirit of the whole batch of dough. Patience. Don't be discouraged if change doesn't happen immediately. Leaven needs time to ferment. Trust the process of silent and persistent transformation. Conclusion. Today, what leaven is being mixed into the dough of your life? Is it a bad habit spoiling your potential, or a small commitment to excellence? Share the positive leaven you'll start using today in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next insightful lessons. See you again soon.